Hey guys, Bobby Thompson back with another video, and in this video I want to talk about why satellites are a joke. So without further ado, we're going to cover 9 reasons why I feel satellites are a joke. So reason number 1, you've seen a satellite being deployed. So if you've ever seen a satellite being deployed, you'll know what I mean. Number 2, all photos of satellites in space are cartoons. Number 3, you can't see photos of planes from space. Number 4, when you zoom out on Earth, it turns into a cartoon in Google Earth. Number 5, we wouldn't need satelloons if satellites were real. Number 6, NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world. Number 7, there are GPS dead spots all over the world. Number 8, LORAN was doing the job long before cartoon satellites and for less. And number 9, the 8,700 mile per hour mesh trilateration network. So if you've seen a satellite being deployed, you'll know the hilarity of this, of satellites. So this first clip we're going to look at came from this video here, which is from the International Astronautical Federation YouTube channel. And it's from 1984, STS-51A Discovery. And let's just go right to that video.
That is just a quick scenes of life in orbit. Our first task, of course, was to deploy Telesat. It was a nighttime deploy, and so this is a TV picture, nighttime TV picture of the deploy. It looks more...
There's the wire pulling the little model satellite out of the model space shuttle. So if you want to see this video for yourself, I won't, for brevity, I won't replay it, but just go to YouTube and search 1984 STS-51A Discovery. Or if you want to type in the URL directly, this is the URL. Feel free to stop the video and type that in. The next video I'm going to show you is from 1983. STS-8 Challenger came from the same YouTube channel. And if you want to search for this video, it's 1983 STS-8 Challenger, or you can just type in this URL directly. Let's check it out.
There were very few vibrations of any sort. Here's a picture of the...
And do you see the giant head here? There's the nose, eyes, forehead, mouth. So this is nothing more than a model, right? This is a model, and they made the mistake of, I don't know if the editor just missed this or, but there was a giant head in the background. So all photos of satellites in space are cartoons. If you Google satellites in space, you'll see stuff like this. First off, I want to point out that we're led to believe that there are tens of thousands of satellites orbiting the Earth, but we've never seen them from any of the supposed ISS or any other footage we get from any other satellites. We never happen to catch a satellite in between whatever we're viewing from and Earth. But all these are cartoons, right? Go to GPS, go to Google yourself, type in satellites in space or real satellite, whatever search term you want, and just click on them. And they're all images. And you can see, obviously, they don't even, none of the dimensions match, right? Look at this, I don't know, I guess this is Earth. It's got a glowing background and glowing space here. This one's got a drastic curve. This one's got even more of a curve. This one has less of a curve. This one's showing multiple satellites in space, right? This is all, none of this is real. This one shows no stars. This one has stars. These are all cartoons, right? So you can't see a picture of a real, authentic satellite in space. You can't see photos of planes from space. So what does that mean? Well, let's add a little context to this. What's the busiest airport in the world? It's the Atlanta airport, which continues to be the world's busiest airport with 4.7 million seats. And we'll switch over to Google Earth here. And this is Atlanta's airport. Okay, we're led to believe that these are satellite photos. I don't know why they'd be coming in at an angle, right? You would think that all this imagery would be shot straight down, but this is Atlanta International Airport, or whatever it's called, ATL Hartsfield Jackson, and I guess it's made up of a couple different terminals. But if we zoom out, now we can see these planes, no problem. Look at this. I can zoom in. So the higher up, imagine 35,000 feet higher than this, a plane would be bigger. And we zoom out and we zoom out. Now we're looking, if you've ever been to an airport, if you've ever flown, we're looking at airspace here, right? And one thing you will never find at any height, okay, you can sit here and go back and forth in heights. You're never going to find an airplane, right, of any kind over any airport anywhere in the world. And that's a huge red flag, right? As I'm zooming in, I should be seeing airplanes somewhere, but I've never seen one. I know plenty of people that have searched and scoured. I have done it myself. I have never seen an airplane. And as you zoom out further, I think the reason, my belief is that these are nothing more than photos stitched together that come from imaging equipment at the same height as airplanes, right? Like there's I think it's called, I can't remember, Sophia or something. They have airplanes that fly around and take images, which would explain the angular image, right? Because it's shot out of the side of the airplane, or it's captured from the side of the airplane. So you're never going to see an airplane. Feel free to use Google Earth. Go to any airport you want to, zoom all around it, and just try to find an airplane out flying. So if you really think that these images are being generated from a satellite, like they want you to believe, you have to believe that they've never caught an airplane in the air. Okay. Let's go back to my presentation here. Okay, so when you zoom out on Earth, it turns into a cartoon. What do I mean by that? Let's go back to Google Earth. If I zoom out, this is all compositely put together, right? Let's just zoom out a little bit. Let's zoom out a little more. This is a cartoon, right? And like right now, why do I see no clouds anywhere? That's because this is all stitched together. If this were a real photo of Earth, we'd see these clouds. But even that, none of this is real, right? When you're out looking down over the ocean, and these are dark, murky waters, what are we seeing here? Are you telling me from space we can see the ocean floor? Is that what they want you to believe here? I'm pretty sure this comes from ocean sonography, right? So I think it's safe to say we can't just from space look and see the ocean floor, right? Look, I mean, here's where are we here? South Africa. I mean, here we are in Africa. Where's the clouds? There's no clouds, right? So this wasn't taken from this picture. You're not zooming out to a satellite view. Clouds don't magically go away. This is all the proof you need. So when you zoom out, again, this is all just a cartoon, and zooming in should be all the evidence you need, right? Like what is this crap, and why does it all have Google Earth written all over it when you zoom in? Google. All right, let's go back to my presentation here. We wouldn't need satelloons if satellites were real. So Project Echo was the first passive communications satellite experiment. Each of the two American spacecraft launched in 1960 and 1964 were metallized balloon satellites. So the first satellites were balloons. They were just helium balloons, and they would fly around the Earth, the plane, whatever you think it is, at 1,000 miles up. At least so they want us to believe. Google Loon. Google admits...
While many of us take the internet for granted, large parts of the world are still unconnected. In big towns and cities, providing connectivity with cell towers is economical. as there are lots of people there wanting to connect. But the further away from these towns and cities you go, the fewer people there are, until eventually connectivity just stops. To bring the internet to people in these areas, we need to look up, way up, into the stratosphere. From here, we can provide connectivity across much larger areas, bringing the benefits of the internet to more people. So how do we get there? With balloons. Really big balloons. Beginning their journey from one of our custom-built balloon launchers, our balloons are filled with lighter-than-air gas and released up into the skies. Rising 20 kilometers into the stratosphere, loon balloons float twice as high as airplanes, well above weather and wildlife. To get to where they need to go, loon balloons sail the winds by moving up or down into different wind currents traveling in different directions, joining other balloons in small teams over areas where connectivity is needed. Ground stations connected to local internet service providers send signal up to the balloons and then back down to the ground over large distances, allowing people to connect directly to the internet with an LTE mobile phone. When it is eventually time for our balloons to come down, we navigate them to remote areas and work with local air traffic control to manage their slow descent down to Earth, where they're collected by our recovery teams.
All right, so talking more about satelloons, it's obviously a mature technology. That's an old video, probably 5 years old, maybe older, maybe 7 years old. That was when it was LTE. Today, we obviously use 3G and 5G, mostly 5G. So they can send these things up. They can manage which direction they go. They can make them do loops over certain areas. We can set up networks anywhere. There's no reason that can't provide GPS signaling as well. If a satellite can do it from space, there's no reason why we can't do it with a mesh network of satelloons. So moving on to the next reason, NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world. So this would only corroborate that NASA is actually using satelloons. So who is the biggest helium consumer? NASA is the biggest consumer of helium, using annually almost 75 million cubic feet, followed by the USA Department of Defense. Interesting. So we're using NASA, followed by the US Department of Defense, uses the most helium in the world. Here's a contract I found on NASA's website going back to 2014, and they awarded an agency-wide helium contract to two companies, Air Products and Chemicals Inc. of Allentown and Lind LLC of Murray Hill, New Jersey. And it was for 10.2 million liters of liquid helium and 128.6 million cubic feet of gaseous helium to support operations at 13 NASA locations. To support operations at 13 NASA locations. I don't think NASA launches out of 13 locations, but they sure do need a lot of helium. There are GPS dead spots all over the world, and these can be experienced on land. They can be experienced in the ocean. Let's look at this. This is from Discovery Channel, and this is a very expensive ship with one of the most expensive GPS navigation systems. Listen to them say it themselves, again, right from Discovery Channel.
Parce que c'est faux ça en plus. Elle est plus la caille. Donc, ouais.
The Boreal's navigation system is among the best in the world, but her GPS coordinates aren't adding up. Captain...
Well, I accidentally killed that somehow. Oh, crap.
Lemaire has no choice but to literally chart his own course.
First of all, the charts are not so accurate, and we need to come back in the past and to don't trust too much all the computers and the digital charts, and especially GPS. GPS accuracy is 300 meters here, and 300 meters is a big deal.
All right, so not sure if you heard that, but GPS accuracy, using one of the most expensive GPS navigation systems in the world, is only good for 300 meters, which is closer to 900 feet, right? And that is, we were doing that in the 60s with LoRaN, right? They probably actually are using LoRaN. I don't think personally, I don't think there is a such thing as GPS. So I've also experienced hour-long dead zones. This is me and my wife in Colorado. We experienced this in several states. For brevity's sake, I'm not going to play all the videos, but this is just one video on a clear day with very little clouds in the sky, a sunny day, no rain, wide open country. We're in Colorado and we had no signal for roughly an hour, but let's just play the video. All right, so we're driving through Colorado and we've been waiting for GPS signal. So there's still no GPS signal. We haven't had it for about 15 minutes. And this is common when you're driving around in open country to lose GPS. There's no GPS signal here. And this has happened to us more times than we can count, and sometimes for an hour at a time. So anyone that thinks GPS signals all over the US, they are absolutely wrong. So why this is important is if GPS comes from space, there would be nothing obstructing my signal, right? I would have those 2 weeks we were traveling around the US in the Midwest and would routinely lose GPS signal when we were in what I'd call open country, right? Like Arizona, Colorado, Montana, would get away from big cities and your GPS goes away. Of course, when you're near a city or a town where there's a cell tower, GPS magically comes back. So if you haven't experienced that, you haven't done any traveling, if you're living in the city or in a small town, sure, no problem, GPS works. But as I've just shown you out in the ocean, why would it be different, right? If it's coming from above, the signal would be, the accuracy would be the same, right? Accuracy in the city is 6 inches. Look it up, Google it. GPS is accurate to you move your phone over 6 inches and it can tell. So LoRaN was doing the job long before cartoon satellites and for less. So if you're not familiar with LoRaN, LoRaN was developed, I think in the 50s. Yeah, the US Navy began development of LoRaN. I think it was in the 50s. They certainly had it. They took over, the Coast Guard took over operations of it in 1958. I'm not going to take all day and read all this. This just came from Wikipedia, LoRaN. But to summarize it, the first thing is that you should know is that satellites were first made by sci-fi writer Arthur C. Clarke, who also wrote A Space Odyssey. I can't remember the exact name of the movie, but now that we know the history of satellites, let's dig into what they provide. The first bullet point was GPS. It turns out before there was space-based GPS, there was perfectly functioning global positioning system called LoRaN, which stood for Long Range Navigation. By the 1960s, LoRaN was already accurate to 20 feet. Now imagine the accuracy comes from how many more nodes you have in your mesh network, right? So on land, GPS positioning makes perfect sense. You have towers that can't move an inch, and the more towers you're around, you can do more. We'd call this triangulation on land. In GPS, the term they use is trilateration, but whatever you want to call it. So they were at 20 feet in the 1960s, right? If you read this, you'll say they improved their performance to 20 feet. Shortly after that, LoRaN F and eLoRaN came out with even higher accuracy. So that we're talking in the 50s and 60s with far less. Think about this. Think about when the first cell phones came out, right? When did people start getting those? In the late 80s, early 90s? So just towers, cell towers and radio towers were so less dense back then. And now we have these everywhere. Of course, if we were using LoRaN for these towers and nodes, whatever you want to call them, we certainly would have the accuracy of 6 inches. Now, the last thing I want to point out is what I call the 8,700 mile per hour mesh trilateration network, which is a mess. It is a problem. And the way GPS would work in space with satellites is you would have multiple satellites circling the Earth twice per day, and at a height of 20,000 kilometers, and you would use trilateration, and it uses a rate times time, basically. So it's sending pings back, and it's using trilateration between these different nodes, right? The problem is, let me put it together for you here. Our GPS satellite's geostationary. Just to kind of recap what I said, they circle the Earth at an altitude of 20,000 kilometers or 13,000 miles, and they complete 2 full orbits a day. They are not in a geostationary orbit, meaning satellites are wrapping around the Earth, right? They're not even stationary. So how fast are they going? Well, there's multiple orbit calculators you can use. I checked it with several, but the one I went with was for the picture proof, so to speak, was Kaizen. And your flight velocity is 3.8, let's just round and say 3.9 kilometers per second. Okay, so what's that in miles per hour? Something we should all know. That's roughly 8,700 miles per hour. That's how fast this mesh network is wrapping around the supposed sphere of the Earth. 8,700 miles an hour. And you're trying to do trilateration with that, right? So first off, for that to even work, if you talk to someone who does any type of development, right, those nodes would have to, or satellites, whatever you want to call them, would have to not move an inch in between each other. They would have to be as if they were, punched on the outside of a ball, right? Because if I move my phone 6 inches, how does the mesh network not know what it was one of its nodes not moving 6 inches while it's zipping around the Earth at 8,700 miles an hour? If any of that mesh network was just moving around at all, it couldn't trilaterate correctly. You certainly couldn't get accuracy to 6 inches, right? How do they know? I mean, how do they know it's the phone that moved and not it that moved, right? It can only sense the rate, right? It can only sense the time and the rate of those pings. So if an object moves like that in space, how does it know it was this one that moved, one of the satellites, or the phone that moved, right? So these are all moving. Well, I can tell you that mesh network would have to be perfect. But even then, it would have problems because it's moving around the Earth. Really, it would only be non-problematic if that mesh network were geostationary. But even then, you couldn't tell me that you can have all these objects that don't move within 6 inches. Now, in your head, you may be thinking about, you've seen a drone show, and all these drones can stay right beside each other, and that's what you're thinking, or you may have thought that. That's because they're using GPS. That's how they can stay and move around like that perfectly. But I contend that GPS comes from the ground, and the reason we can have exact coordinates of something in space is because those nodes on the ground don't move at all. They're perfectly fixed on a flat stationary plane, right? If you think that would work on a mesh network that's freely moving around, doing 8,700 miles an hour, you've got some disconnects in your brain. So that was my closing. In closing, what makes more sense? I already summed it up. Those are my 9-ish reasons for why satellites are a joke. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.